I got a lot of things I've been thinking about. I don't know if I can bring all this together. It's too much. Watched Lex Friedman's most recent podcast with Sarah Walker. Loved it. Just absolutely loved it. I like how Sarah thought maybe the most important question is the question of why does anything exist at all? And she spent a lot of time talking about ways of thinking about our creation since the Big Bang Theory and what we've been able to see experimentally in physics and what have you. Just a tremendous conversation. I answer the question of why does anything exist at all by just holding a postulate in my mind as if there is an all-loving God who triggered the universe into existence, and we're learning ever more about the laws that God has followed. That the laws that are being followed when God triggered this universe into existence, and I think God is time itself. Now, am I right? I have no idea. I could be totally wrong, but I think it's logically consistent. I think I'm able to make up a set of ideas here that are logically consistent with each other and self-reinforcing, and just as much as probably models that we get from Judaism or Christianity or other models for understanding this universe. We don't even have to necessarily even turn to religions for understanding those models. It's really good. But I can't just keep like thinking about those ideas. I also have to get really concrete and think about political ideas. I have to think about what's really, the enduring appeal of Christianity to me through all my life was the fact that I could always find something else in the Bible to contemplate, to think about, and that would be kind of mind-bending. And not long ago, I did a video about the 7 seals of Revelation, and so what I'm trying to get at is something like this. Let's talk about Donald Trump. Okay. I mean, it doesn't matter what he says. It doesn't matter anything that he says, anything that he is. It doesn't matter. What matters is there's probably on the order of 70 million people in the United States of America that will vote for him. And many people are indicating they're voting for him by pointing out the problems they have with Biden. They'll just say, well, he's too old, I can't vote for him. I guess I have no choice but to vote for Trump. And so when maybe in their heart and their minds they actually want Trump, they actually want to vote for Trump in truth anyway, they just don't want to say it out loud because, he's been convicted of felonies, or, he says things that he shouldn't say. He indicates blatant racism. He indicates, all kinds of issues. So what's going on there? A lot of theories. 2 come to mind. One big theory comes to mind. Why do so many people support Donald Trump? One big theory comes to mind. Go through 2. One, people want revolutionary change. People just want something to change. There's something off about the country that it's too hard to get ahead. Inflationary pressure is messing with everything. Too many people are in debt. People who are not in debt are still fearful that the financial system could shift from underneath them, and even though they're not in debt and have lots of value, they don't know if the value will be there in the future, and there's a certain fear of the future that brings the desire for revolutionary change now. And since you can't see how to achieve revolutionary change, except that you could vote for this guy who would be like a bull in a china shop and just rip up everything. What did I just recently see on TikTok? I don't know if this is true or not because you have to be careful what you look at. But something like Donald Trump proposed. I heard him say that he proposed eliminating taxes on tips. I used to be a waiter. I've worked as a chauffeur. I totally get the idea of not wanting to have to pay taxes on my tips. I'm sure a lot of people are like, hey, I heard that. Yeah, that would be a great idea. I also heard, is it true that he just recently announced the elimination of the income tax and just says that the government will get what it needs through tariffs? Okay. Well, it's patently absurd. It's absurd to suggest doing that. It's like telling everybody right now you have to adopt the metric system in the United States of America, or telling everybody right now that you're no longer going to arrange the keyboard on a typewriter, ASDF, put F underneath this finger, put E underneath this finger because you use this finger so often. That should be the most common letter. It's like there's no telling what the ramifications of that change to our income tax structure could have. The massive amount of unforeseen consequences could devastate the world. It's like I remember when Joe Biden did the fist bump with the Prince of Saudi Arabia, and I don't like that Prince of Saudi Arabia because I have evidence from watching the news and hearing what the CIA announced that he had Khashoggi killed, an American green card holder that was working as a reporter. He had the guy murdered and had his body sawed up and sent to various places. Now, I mean, that'd be nice if he would go through a trial and actually be convicted of it, but it's pretty hard to do that, and there seems to be evidence that he did it. But then Joe Biden comes along and fist bumps the guy, and why? Well, because Saudi Arabian oil, if that stops flowing out of Saudi Arabia, it causes worldwide famine. I mean, maybe 100 million people would die of starvation if suddenly Saudi Arabia cut the world off from its oil for a year or two or three. You know what I mean? I don't know what the ramifications are, but it's probably pretty vast. So there you are. You fist bump a murderer. You know what I mean? And that's what you wind up doing. One who hasn't repented from it and one who hasn't served time for it. You know what I mean? You just fist bump the murderer and let him get away with it. It's like, sad. Oh, I'm still voting for Joe Biden. Make no mistake about it. But I'm trying to get to the handle of why so many people are supporting Trump. And in the first place, I think that many people want revolutionary change. They don't know how to achieve revolutionary change. And so therefore, this is the only way they can achieve that revolutionary change that they want. And there's a conflation of a lot of separate groups coming together supporting him for all the different reasons that they might. So there's, you have your schizophrenic QAnon conspiracy types that are going to vote for Trump because, they're schizophrenic QAnon conspiracy types, right? I don't know what proportion of MAGA supporters are that. 5%, 2%, 1%, 10%. I don't know. I wish I had the time to do statistics on that. I just don't know, But I know it's not zero. That I'm certain of because I know individuals that are voting for Donald Trump because they're conspiracy theorists. Okay, so I know it's not zero. Why would other people be supporting him? Again, I don't know what percentage, but they want revolutionary change, and they don't see how revolutionary change can be achievable without supporting him. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, okay, there's other ways to achieve revolutionary change. I'm trying to reach you. I'm trying, if you're a MAGA supporter and you're looking at me, trying to get me to convince you to change your mind about voting for Trump versus Biden, I'd say Biden offers you not very much revolutionary change. He's going to keep things going with incremental improvements to the system and maybe some incremental things that won't be so good for the system. I don't know. But as a rule, it's not going to be drastic change to the things we're trying to do if you pick Biden, right? And but you might strongly believe that things do need to drastically change. Okay, so my argument to you would be Trump isn't the way to get your drastic change that you want, your drastic revolutionary change that you want. Okay, that is not the way to do it. I recommend that you vote for Biden and start a whole different, very concrete way to achieve the revolutionary change you want, which is to appeal to the United States Constitution, which says that the several states can call for a convention where new proposals to amend the Constitution can be then sent back out to the several states for ratification. And the federal government takes no part in this process. It's just something the states do. And so, what I'm suggesting is we need to go back over our Constitution as a people. Liberals, conservatives. I'm going to claim that I'm progressive and liberal. I mean, some people don't think I am, but it is what it is. Get progressives in the room, liberals in the room, conservatives in the room, right-wing guys in the room, and let's sit down and let's try to remember what's important. Go back over the Constitution and rewrite it, and then we can debate that in the public sphere for a year or two, and then maybe implement some or all of the changes that are recommended by that convention, and that might be the revolutionary change that people are looking for. I think it dovetails precisely with other countries can go through revolution, but you're not going to change the world system unless America leads the way. So America having a political revolution, one that's not violent based, but where people really get in the room with each other and really duke out what they want. Maybe there's some way cities can have more control over guns, but the people out in the country in certain cities would be like, you can never ever talk about gun control with us. We're always going to be allowed to have whatever weapons we want. Fine, maybe we can revolutionize the way we do prisons. Maybe we can revolutionize the way we do finance. Maybe we can revolutionize everything, I like I argued in that one to YouTube video, it's I wish the United States Constitution had encoded in it a 50-year process. I get that straight from the Bible. Leviticus 25:10, Philadelphia, you know what I mean? The Liberty Bell, Leviticus 25:10. Every 50 years blow the trumpet, and I mean, one of the reasons why I maintained my Christianity for way longer than I should have. Don't get me wrong, I'm still a Christian. I'm a renovationist Christian. I needed to realize that I was a different type of Christian faster, is what I'm really saying. But I maintained my identity as an old school kind of Christian for a lot longer than I should have, primarily because inside the Bible I found a secret message. It's not that secret, but it's right there. It's evident, and I mentioned there's every Jewish rabbi under the sun probably knows what this message is. Probably all the Catholic priests too. But you can't talk about it because the message is like, oh wow! Once you notice it, it's mind-boggling, and that message is just simply Leviticus 25:10. It's having this moment of jubilation, this moment of freedom for everyone. And what do people need to be free of? And that's the hard part. We all know basics. People need to be free from addiction. People need to be free from drinking too much and sexual addiction and all the basic sins. A good word for it. The basic sins that destroy people's lives. But then there can be oppressive structures above those that ruin everyone's life. And those oppressive structures, can be, you imagine Jim Crow laws and the way African Americans were treated, after the Civil War. And of course, the slave laws before the Civil War. These are all examples of structures that are just downright wicked, and they needed to change and be abolished. And in some cases, they don't need to be gradually changed at all. Just get rid of them. That's how I feel like about the Mexican border wall. Everyone, it's axiomatic in this country that there's a crisis at the border, and there's nothing you can do about it except, deal with it appropriately with harsh tactics. I'm like, Mexican citizen wants to come here and work, let him come here and work. I didn't say that they could be allowed to sit on juries and vote, but, they can certainly own property and work. You know what I'm saying? Anybody who wants to, pay taxes. They have a young population. They're 150 million people strong. Mexico's our brother to the south, our sister to the south, and we need her just as much as she needs us. And so it's like, we obviously should have a greater unity with them, just like the European Union or something of that sort. To me, that's just obvious. I don't understand why people don't see it though. How great it would be for our culture if we let Mexican citizens easily enter into our country and just work, without all these different rules and limitations that we put on it. But that's just, what am I talking about? I'm talking about liberty. What does it mean? Human freedom, Philadelphia freedom, right? What is freedom? You can't be freed from gravity, right? Obviously. You can't be freed from the need to eat food and your biological man. But what is genuine human freedom? And I think that as time goes by, we need to try to identify what general and human freedom is and increase it as much as we can through the population. And these can happen in stunning moments. So when you read the Bible, you have Jesus says, at one point, he says, I have come to proclaim a year acceptable to the Lord. Okay, right. So go back to that Leviticus 20 times. It's a 1-year Jubilee. During that 1 year, everything gets kind of restructured. Then after the year is over, things go right back to normalcy, right back to the normal way they are. You get the idea. So what we could do is we could program it. We could get together in a new constitutional convention. All of us talk about, it should be open proceedings. There could be some things behind the closed doors, but then, the proposals have to be open, of course, like the Constitution is easily writable by anyone. But it doesn't make that much sense anymore. That's one of the great things about redoing it. It's like every sentence of it, everyone should, as we'll be able to understand it. It can be taught while we're in the process of doing it to our 6th grade class. And what enthusiasm people would have for thinking about new ways to do things and knowing what things you never want to change. Still, in my opinion, still should be 3 branches of government. The first article establish Congress and the Senate, but maybe do that in some kind of better way. I'm filled with all kinds of ideas. Like one idea I love, is the way we would do ownership. If you think about a company or a business as a 4-dimensional object, meaning it has the things it owns over time. And when somebody works for an 8-hour shift for a company, how many hours of existence does that company have? And you could actually automatically say the moment that you work one shift for a company, or after your first year, it only clicks in that, you automatically start to get ownership. Wherever anybody works, they automatically start to have ownership over whatever organization that they work for. And it could be to the tune of a very small percentage, 0.0000001%. I don't know, do math on it, come up with a system of ownership. But it's like programmed in our Constitution that no matter where you work, automatically get ownership of the organization that you work for at some level. Now, who controls the company? Well, surely maybe half of the ownership always goes to the investors and, to the CEO and all that stuff. But the other half goes to the people who work. There has to be some way you can balance that out. And then the ownership ultimately becomes your retirement fund. And so we kind of maybe are doing that in a systematic way with the entire country. The country owns everything in the country. And now everyone gets their Social Security based upon how much salary they've earned over the course of their lives when they get older. I mean, we're already kind of doing it, but here's the point: people don't see it that way. People need to relearn that we're doing it that way, and that and then people could start to see exactly how the system is supposed to work. Then once you see clearly how the system is supposed to work, then you can identify when corruption's in it. But how easy is it for you to see corruption in a system that you don't understand in the first place? And I think that's one of the major enduring appeals of Donald Trump. I genuinely believe that. He will badmouth the corruption in the system, and you don't know any better. You're like, yeah. I mean, this election was rigged. I mean, if you really think about this election was rigged, how many judges of elections did you just offend? What is a judge of election in the first place? I mean, I'm in Pennsylvania. Every precinct where there's a polling booth, there's a person who can run for the office to be the judge of the election of that polling booth. So somebody runs for that position, gets that position, right? And then they're the ones who stand at the, when the ballots are being cast to observe everything and make sure everything looks like it's going right and everything is being correct and making sure IDs are checked. In Pennsylvania, you have to show your ID the first time you vote at any polling place, but then you never need to show your ID again, which is a very respectful system, I think, because it's like, the Republicans are fast to talk about needing to show your ID, but it's like, I'm not sure, there's plenty of places in Pennsylvania where old Miss Sally walks into the polling place and she knows everybody in the room, and it's like, where's your ID card at? It's like, they'd be offended by that. Of course they don't need to show their ID. Everyone knows who that is, So I think we have a pretty reasonable, respectful law about needing to show your ID the first time, but then they have your signature, and it's like the way they do it, it's upside down so that when you sign, they can look and see the comparison between the two. And there's somebody elected in a position to be able to come over and say, wait a second, that signature doesn't look right, I suppose, something of that sort. So it's like, it's time for us to go back over our system. And have a revolutionary change to our system where over a 3, 4, 5 year period we use, because America is such a Christian nation, we use some of the things that are programmed in the Bible as a spark for it. We need a Jubilee year, 1 year. You know what I mean? I used to argue that Jesus inaugurated the Jubilee for all time, and it's every year is a Jubilee year. That's how I used to think about it. But again, I was in that crucible where every part of the Bible had to make logical sense to me. And I kept trying to contort it into making logical sense to me in relationship to the reality, until finally I just realized it wasn't up to the task of it. The Bible is not the Word of God. I mean, I get you if you think that it is. I mean, I wanted it to be for as long as I could imagine, until eventually I realized that it's just a really interesting book that we can, you need to read it with modern commentary so you can tangle the true from the false. And